Guy and Margot. We are live on Zoom and YouTube. And
I forgot to tell him that I got back. The Guy and Margot.
Guy and Margot, Seth is back. Good. Kayla Gittel, good to see you. Our representative from I was going to say the great state, but I'll just go with the state of California. You know. We're going to get started in 60 seconds. I'm just sharing it on 2 more platforms, and then we are good to go. You're going to hear a knock on the window. I don't want you guys to freak out. You know, everyone's on high alert. It's going to be Mitchell knocking on the window because the doors are locked to let us know that he wants to get in for class. So it's one of ours. Oh. Good evening, Carmen. L'chaim Kayla Gittel. Good evening, Marjorie and Dwayne. Okay, I believe we're on all the platforms. It's only 7 o'clock just now. Good evening, Mark from Parkland, Florida. What an Olam gathering. We're going to open our Chumash. We're in the portion of Noah. Oh, James is coming on. Yaakov ben Abram. Okay, so we are going to start today with the Torah portion of Noah, the second portion of the book of Genesis. It is in the live Chumash that we use here at the Shul. It's page 39. And believe it or not, it's all based. Our class tonight is going to be really delving in to the first verse of the portion and understand the expectations that existed for Noah and what does that teach us about this man that's known for being Noah and the great flood, or Noah and the ark, right? Very important lessons about God's expectations of people, but sometimes even what are our own expectations of ourselves. And it's a very important discussion because joy and expectations are very much interconnected. Why? Because if we create unreasonable expectations, we kill our joy. Because the expectations don't come through and then we're not happy. So we create these unreasonable expectations, then we wonder why we're unhappy instead of just going with the flow. But how do you actually do that? And what are the expectations? What are the expectations for us? When do we get to have excuses? Oh, let me mute you over there. There we go. When do you get to have excuses and get out of the job that you're meant to be doing? And when do you not have excuses? And so we're going to discuss this in detail. Right from the beginning of the first verse, I'd like to dedicate our study, as we're going to do for the next while, to our brothers and sisters in arms, to the members of the IDF, of Tzahal, and all the other versions of departments in the Israeli intelligence, everyone that's involved in protecting the citizens of Eretz Yisrael, everyone that's involved in the battle here in America and outside of Israel, the battle of ideas, when you have people marching with Hamas flags and too many of them defending pure, unadulterated evil. There's a battle for minds as well, and there's a team of people. I have a friend from New York and Florida. His name is Haskell Banet. You have him. You have David Friedman, the former ambassador. There's people on social media that are at it all day. Hillel Fold is an incredible man that lives in Israel, lives in Bet Shemesh. His brother Ari was murdered a couple years ago, and he's on social media. He's very active, and he fights these guys all day. But it's a full-time. It's literally a full-time job to fight the lies, to fight the hatred, to fight the misinformation, the malicious lies that are told. And so God should bless them too, because they're part of the team that's fighting this. Baruch Hashem, the IDF has an incredible spokesman finally that's knocking it out of the park. But we need all the blessings we can get. And so our Torah study tonight, there's tens of thousands of soldiers that would love to be sitting in a warm room tonight studying Torah, listening to incredible ideas from the wisdom of old, but they can't because they're physically on the front line. So we're going to learn and have them in our minds and in our hearts. I will tell you a beautiful story just to begin with, because I think stories, it warmed my heart, and I only heard it at 5 o'clock today, so 2 hours ago. So I want to share it with you because let it warm your heart. There's a young rabbi on one of the army bases. He's a mashgiach kashrut. He just makes sure the kitchen's kosher. But he's a member of the Israeli army, meaning if there's a need, he has, his weapons and his gear. And a guy showed up yesterday to his army base with 300 cooked meals for the soldiers at the base. So the guy that runs the base, the sergeant, the commander, whatever the title is, he came, he said, listen, we'd love to take the food from you, but we have rules on the base. We need to know kosher, not kosher. So we're going to ask the rabbi to come over from the kitchen. So the rabbi comes over and says to this guy who looks very, very secular, he says, I don't mean to be judgmental. I just need to know because we're serving all different types of soldiers. So he says, I need to know what the status of the kashrut of the food is. So this man says to the rabbi as follows. The rabbi is, a modern Orthodox rabbi, if you wish. That's how he looks from what I can tell. He says, I only spoke to a rabbi twice in my life. You're one of them. And the other one I spoke to yesterday. I grew up in a kibbutz. I'm very secular in every sense of the word, but I was going to prepare 300 meals for an army base, and I understand that in Israel, army bases have all different levels, and I couldn't fathom that I'm going to come to an army base and some of the soldiers won't be able to eat because they won't trust the kashrut of the food. So I went to the rabbi that lives in my area, and I said, do me a favor, just for today, if you don't mind, come and kosher my kitchen, so I can cook for the 300 soldiers, stay here while I, be a mashgiach here so I can, and so the food is kosher, and then I'll take the food to the base. The rabbi on the base said to him, you may not keep Shabbat, you may not observe Shabbos, you may not be this fancy religious guy, but you're a tzaddik, you're a holy Jew. You're a holy Jew. Because the love that you exuded, the love that you cared about another soldier. So what? So what if the Jew wouldn't be, if 7 soldiers wouldn't be able to eat? Big deal. But what we see going on right now in the Jewish world is a love for each other and a unity that I haven't seen in my entire life. In my entire life, 41 years, almost 42 years, I have not seen. Every video I watch, every bar mitzvah on an army base for a kid whose father can't go home, so they make the bar mitzvah on the base. And every time some singer comes to the base and sings, Acheinu Kol Beis Yisrael, our dear brothers who are in a state of trial and tribulation, and God should protect us and save us, the love that's being felt. When Yair Golan, who's such a lefty, is hugging and embracing religious Jews, and they're hugging him, apologizing to him for things that they thought about him. Don't get me wrong, we're still going to have our differences, but the atmosphere is very real, and my only hope and prayer for tonight is that not only am I praying that they all come home in good health and alive, but that our people don't forget. I believe that in my life there's going to be the pre-Simchas Torah and post-Simchas Torah. There's going to be pre-Simchas Torah, Tafshin Pei Daled, 2023, and post-Simchas Torah. There's going to be the Jewish world the way it was before and the way it is after. And my hope is that there's going to be some negatives from that. We're going to have a level of protection that we haven't had before. There's going to be a level of understanding of terrorism that we didn't have before, but there's also going to be a unity in our Jewish family. And my hope and prayer is that that continues. And now,
hopefully more
to Noah. Now we're going to talk about Noach. So the first words of the Torah portion on page 39, these are the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfectly righteous in relation to his generation. Noah walked only with the support of God. And then it says Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Cham, and Yafes. So in Hebrew, these are the offspring of Noah. Noah was Ish Tzaddik, a righteous person. Tamim haya b'deirasav. He was perfect or wholesome in his generation, and he walked with God. Now Rashi right away quotes a famous debate in the Talmud. right? When it says that he was righteous in his generation, does it mean, right? Some, Rashi quotes it. Some of the sages say that it's a positive, that he was righteous even in a generation of wicked, immoral, unethical people. And had he lived in a generation of righteous people like Abraham, he would have been even more righteous because he would be surrounded by other righteous people, so he'd be able to grow in his righteousness. But there's others who interpret it very differently and almost derogatorily, Lagnai. They say that Noah was righteous only relative to all the crazy, insane, immoral, and unethical people of his generation. But if he lived in Abraham's generation, he would have been considered a regular guy, an average Joe the plumber. He wouldn't be something out of the ordinary. Joseph was a Jew. It's a whole different world. This is pre-Torah, and Joseph was also pre-Torah, but he was post-Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, post-patriarchs. We're going to actually talk about that soon. So there's a few aspects here that I want to address because I think it's very important. First of all, we know there's a famous teaching in the Talmud that the Torah doesn't even like mentioning an impure animal. Doesn't like even using those kind of terms, impure. When it has no choice, it does. Like when it comes to halacha, when we have to know, is this animal kosher or unkosher? So then it will tell us clearly if it's kosher or unkosher. But like when it's just a story in the Torah, right? Like here in the story of Noah himself, in this week's Torah portion, when it tells them to take animals into the ark, supposed to take 7 of each of the kosher, 2 of each of the non-kosher. When it says non-kosher, it doesn't say tamei, which means impure. It says enenu tehora, which isn't pure. 2 separate words. We're not using the word tamei, which is impure. We're using a word tehora, which means pure. And we're saying enenu, it isn't tehora, pure. And the Talmud says that the Torah doesn't even want to use derogatory terms even about animals when we don't have to. When we have no choice, when we need clarity, then clarity is king. But when we do have a choice and you can convey the same message without using a derogatory term in the Torah, but yet when it comes to Noah, where Rashi's perfectly fine saying that the Torah would spend time specifically telling us that he was righteous and emphasizing, by the way, he was only righteous in his generation, but if he would have lived in the generation of Abraham, he wouldn't be righteous. What's the point? What's wrong with just telling us that Noah would be righteous? Like somebody told me this morning in Great Neck, New York. I sent out my, yesterday, I sent out my little teaching on the Parsha. And he says, every year when it comes to the Torah portion of Noah, everyone picks on Noah. Let the guy live. He was a righteous guy. So he sent me this very amusing WhatsApp message, Sammy, my friend from Great Neck. And the point, I said to Sammy, I burst out laughing. I said, Sammy, every year it's the same thing. We go back and forth. One day I'm telling you how incredible Noah was. And the next day I'm telling you, well, all things considered, he could have done a lot better. So why, when it comes to Noah, are we okay talking about the potential that he wasn't as righteous as we may think, and only relative to the immorality of his generation, right? We call it in Yiddish as a term, a tzaddik in Zdoim. Right? You could be a tzaddik. When you're living in Sodom and Gomorrah, compared to the rest of the people, you come out, you look like a tzaddik in Zdoim. But if you come to a normal city with righteous people, you're just a regular person. But why? I mean, Noah. So here the Rebbe addresses something. First of all, the fact that Noah built an ark does not earn him too much credit. Yes, compared to his generation, he obviously followed God's command. But first of all, God only commanded it to him because he was the only righteous person. So it's sort of like what comes first, the chicken or the, which one was it, the chicken or the egg? But second of all, he was selfish, meaning at the end of the day, the ark saved him from death. So sure, he did it with great purpose because God told him, but he also saved his life through that. That's A. But B, and this is very important, because what the Rebbe in one of his talks says really speaks to me a lot. Because you look at Rashi and you say, there's 2 big opinions. Was he righteous compared to his generation, or was he righteous even compared to Abraham's generation? Are they really arguing? Are they really saying the same thing? So what the Rebbe says in one of his talks is as follows. No one's disagreeing that Noah was nowhere close to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He was nowhere close to Moses. He was nowhere close to the other righteous people that follow. The difference is the two opinions in Rashi are really discussing whether there was an expectation of Noah to live up to those standards. We love playing in our society a game, right? Today you have all these young chachamim, these young woke, I don't call them millennials, I don't even know what generation they are. If I was around in the day of Abraham Lincoln, I would have abolished slavery. First of all, Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, that's A. And B, you probably wouldn't. You'd probably be a nice slave owner. Because hindsight is 2020, and to sit as a, what do they call it, what the quarterback?
Monday morning
quarterback. Want to be a big chacham. Oh, you weren't around. You don't know what the environment was like. Noah was a man that lived in this era between Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the first humans, and the righteous first Jew, Abraham and his wife Sarah, and Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah and Rachel, and then Moses and the 12 tribes, and Moses and the Jewish people coming out of Egypt, the giving of the Torah. He lived in this peculiar era where there was a world full of immorality, where God wanted to destroy the whole world. So, sure, he was righteous compared to the generation he was living in. Is it a positive or a negative? It's a positive. But is it as perfect as Abraham? No, because he didn't live in the generation of Abraham. He didn't get a Torah, right? When Moses prayed to God, what did he do? When Moses would pray to God, he would pray that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were like we do in the Amidah. What's then Noah supposed to do? Say the God of the other wicked person that came before me? What should he do? So his prayers weren't the same as Abraham's. They weren't the same as Moses's. He came in a different era. And so sure, he did not live up. And no one's disagreeing that when you put him on a scale next to Moses, Noah doesn't stand a chance. But is there an expectation that he should stand a chance? According to one interpretation in Rashi, no. And there's no expectation of him for that because he doesn't have the ability to resurrect and to evoke the patriarchs, the matriarchs. He doesn't have the power of the Torah, and therefore the expectation of Noah comes from a very different place. It's not only he doesn't know what he knows, he can't tap into what's not available to him at that time. So it's not necessarily a negative to say that in the right. We always say, oh, if he was the second opinion of Rashi, if he was around the days of Abraham, he would be a nobody. Is that a negative? No. It just means that in that era, they had different opportunities to tap into different energies, and therefore he probably would be a decent guy, but he wouldn't stand out. And the reason he stands out is because he was unique in a generation when that wasn't common at all. He was the only one to do so. But that brings me really to a more important point, and that is this natural, or I shouldn't say natural, this common. It's not natural, it's very unnatural, but it's common. A common interest or common way of young people today of finding excuses to get out of doing the right thing and getting out of doing the hard work. You know, every time I speak to a successful businessman, I shouldn't say every time, almost every time I speak to a successful businessman, they have a drop of humility and they're transparent with the rabbi. They'll tell me, Chaim, you know, first 10 years I was in business, I struggled with this, I struggled with that. First 20 years, Mick and Ali always talk about how when he was in residency, how he'd eat ramen noodles his whole way through residency. I mean, every person I speak to, you know, there were times in life where you didn't have, right, if you're building a big business, there's a need for perseverance, for belief in your product, for belief in your work ethic, for belief that tomorrow is going to bring better things. And today people give up in 5 seconds. And either they run to the government to help them, or they run in the streets for people to help them, or they run to their mother's basement to help them, if they're lucky enough. It lacks the belief in ourselves that we're capable of bigger and better. And that obviously translates to spirituality as well. Oi, I'm already 72. So what? That means what? You saw that picture of that 95-year-old Israeli soldier in his uniform? He's 95. Obviously, no one wants him in the army, but he goes around from base to base in his uniform, 95 years old, to bring chizuk, to encourage soldiers. 95. I love it. I love it on Bridger. I see it's an 87-year-old skiing in Bridger. Why? Because somebody told him he was supposed to retire when he was 59 or 63 or 65? Because the season passes here, exactly. Exactly. It's much, it's free. $5, yeah. When you hit a certain age. You have to start skiing now, so to get there. So, what we learn from Noah is something very important. These two opinions in Rashi that talk about whether he was righteous just compared to his generation or he was righteous even compared to the generations of Abraham, tells us about two different types of Jews. You have some Jews who say, Rabbi, Noah was able to immerse himself in the ark because he was a righteous person. Right? So you come to a Jew and you say, listen, there's floods out there. The world is being flooded right now, especially after what happened on Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres. Our brains are distracted. A lot of Jews are scared depending on where they live. There's just so much turbulence in our heads and our lives. And then you add to it the turbulence of earning a living, which is the biggest turbulence that people struggle with until Hamas kills Jews. That's the number one struggle people have is finances. And you can't catch a break. If you can't catch a break, then some guy comes to you and say, you know what? You know how you could survive in the turbulence of the world, in the flood waters that are overtaking your life? Go into the ark. What's the ark? In Hebrew, the word ark in the Torah is teva. What is the other translation of the word teva? Teva is words. A word is in Hebrew is a teva. So the same Hebrew word for ark is the word for word. So that's modern Hebrew. Teva is a word. A letter, a word. So you put together. So the Baal Shem Tov said that when you immerse yourself in the words of Torah, that's an antidote to the turbulence that's out there. In other words, when you disconnect from the insanity, even for a short time, and you immerse yourself in something holy that feeds your soul, you say a psalm. Right, you're reading news about some Hamas demonstration in Chicago or some Hamas conference in Los Angeles. He's saying to himself, my brain's going to explode. How is that possible? That people that look like humans, with all the body parts that look like humans have, could be such devils and support such atrocities. And you want to explode, but your explosion is not going to help anything. But what you could do is disconnect from your phone for a few minutes and go say a few psalms for the people of Eretz Yisrael. Pray for them with every fiber of your being. Go do a mitzvah in their honor. Go donate a few dollars to them. Go call a friend who's living in Israel and be mechazik them. Give them some strength. Give them some encouragement. Show them that you care. So now you're immersing yourself in holy acts. And that's the Savior. That's how you save yourself. So now you tell that to a Jew, and what does he say to you, Rabbi? It's great that Noah was able to do that, to leave his distraction, leave his water and his floods, but he was Noah. He was a big, super duper holy Jew, righteous Jew. So Rashi says, no, he wasn't so holy. Right? There's one opinion in Rashi that he was okay compared to this generation, but inherently he wasn't that holy. What's the message from that to the Jew? Don't give up on yourself. Oh, I'm not a Noah. If only I was a Noah. No. You are a Noah. You have the ability to be a Noah. You have an ability to save yourself from the floods that can flood your mind, flood your heart, flood your soul, and take you into a place of so much despair and so much hopelessness. You have the ability to float above that. How? It's a choice. What are you going to immerse your mind and your heart into? What are you going to spend your time doing? How many more hours are you going to spend on the news? I'm already about to break my phone. You'll go crazy. You'll walk out so tzedrudelt so tzudreit, your head will be so dizzy. You're going to run into a cave and never come out. You don't have to do that. Noah teaches us that even if you're not some super duper righteous in the days of Abraham, you're just righteous in the days of a flood. Man, look around the world. Considering that there's people dancing with Hamas, you're a pretty good person. So stop belittling yourself. Stop using excuses. Take the time. Immerse yourself in Torah. Immerse yourself in prayer. It doesn't matter how long. It matters the quality, not the quantity. And allow yourself to survive the flood. But then you have the other type of Jew. And this is even maybe a more dangerous one. He's so holy, or she is so holy. I should pray. I should learn. What do I need? I don't need an ark. The floods of the world don't even affect me. I'm so spiritual, the world doesn't affect me. I don't need an ark. I'm safe. The world won't get to me. Obviously, it comes with a level of arrogance. So what do you do for that? We say, Bubala, there's another opinion in Rashi, that Noah was super duper righteous. Even if he lived in the days of Abraham, he would be considered righteous. And yet, even he needed an ark. So don't give yourself excuses for why you don't need to do what you need to do, because you think you're so holy and so hatsy-tatsy spiritual. You're not. Everybody needs an ark. Everyone needs to remove themselves and save themselves from the distraction, from the burdens, from the financial issues, from the news, hakachainik, from all of that. And everyone has the ability to change their ways and persevere and not give up on themselves. Just because you had a teacher in 7th grade that gave up on you is not relevant right now. I'm not saying it doesn't affect you, it isn't traumatic, it is. But it doesn't affect you. Right now, the reason you're not doing what you need to do, the reason you're not persevering, the reason you're not living up to who you can be is because you gave up on yourself. You decided that the status quo is fine and you can live out the rest of my life just being this Grace behemoth that sits there and does nothing and watches news and questions about finances and questions about my spiritual state of being, but isn't ready to do anything about all the above. I read a story this week. Believe it or not, you're allowed to share a story that's not about Israel. It's just a good story. You know the books that you see in Barnes and Nobles and used to see in Borders when Borders still existed, and Amazon, Chicken Soup for the Soul. There's 250 different versions of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken soup for the young soul, chicken soup for the old soul, chicken soup for the doctor soul, right? The whole point is you get a book, it has 100 stories that are good for the particular soul. Did you know that the two authors that worked on the original Chicken Soup for the Soul presented their book to 130 publishers, all of whom declined to print it?
The first book.
The original, when they first...
Wasn't two ladies?
I don't think so. No, one of them is Mark Hansen. No, I don't remember the first one's name. When they hold on, he got disconnected. When they got to 100 publishers declining them, their agent quit on them. He was done. How many agents? I mean, how many times is he going to present it to the publisher? So imagine you have 100 publishers declined you, your agent just quit, and you keep going. It was their 130th publisher that they went to, some small publisher, I believe out of California, that said, you know what?
Take a roll of dice.
We'll print it. If you wanted to guess, how many Chicken Soups for the Soul books have been sold since then?
Billion?
18 million.
500 million. 500 million books. 130 publishers said Kushan Tachas. They didn't want to print it. And by the way, if I was the author, okay, these days you can self-publish on Amazon, but back then, 130 publishers, you know how low your self-esteem could fall by then when 130 publishers tell you to fly a kite? They didn't give up. They believed in their product, they believed in themselves. And eventually, 250 versions, and 500 million books. We're not allowed to give up on ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean that every chachma, every idiotic thing that comes out of your mouth means it's right and you have to stand with it. It just means that your ability to grow as a human being, your ability to be a force of good in the world and change lives. I'm not going to lie, the last 10 days, there was a couple days, maybe every day, that I thought to myself, and honestly, it was more, not only about the hatred of Jews and the horrible murders and atrocities, it's more about how people are responding, not in Bozeman, Baruch Hashem in Bozeman, it's not that way, but in other places that I honestly wanted to, in my head, obviously, go find a little island off of Spain or somewhere, buy a house for 50 grand, and live happily ever after. This world is Meshuggah. Part of me. But that's, first of all, that's extremely selfish. Second of all, why do I think it's okay to excuse myself from the role of being a positive impact in the world? You don't get the ability to just quit your impact on the world, your ability to be a force of good in the world because it's easier. No one told us it was going to be easy. Right? What's my famous quote? No. What's my the one that hangs in my house? It's been a while. It's time to repeat it again. So in my house, there's a no. 1 second, I'm a nut. I'm actually looking it up. So Brooke, Dr. Cadwell, Brooke Cadwell here in Bozeman once posted it on Facebook, and I saw it. And I got it engraved in wood. And every morning when I walk out of my bedroom to start my day, it's on the wall. It's attributed to Dr. Seuss. Whether he said it or not, I don't know. But it goes like this. This is what it says. You come to my house, I'll show it to you. Life is too short to wake up in the morning with regrets. So love the people who treat you right. Forget about the ones who don't. And believe that everything happens for a reason. If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said it would be easy. They just promised it would be worth it. And so when you think about that quote, of course, can I be like Noah? Oh, no way! I'm too. I'm a nobody. I can't. No, yes, you could be like Noah, because Noah was not this. He was a regular guy, a righteous guy in a generation of wicked people. You could be that. Oh, I can't be like Noah because I don't need to be like Noah because Noah had to worry about an ark. I don't need an ark. I'm so holy and spiritual. No, you don't. Noah was holy like the people of Abraham's generation, righteous, and he still needed an ark. Everyone needs an ark to survive, but you don't have the right to give up on yourself and recognize that you are capable of saving yourselves, saving the people around you, and being a beacon of light and goodness and righteousness for the world. The world is Meshuggah. When you go from CNN to Fox and MSNBC, you don't know who's more Meshuggah than the other. And some days when you watch American news, you're not sure if you're watching American news, the Stormer or Al Jazeera. When the Arabs bomb their own hospital, it takes 50 hours for people to change the lies that they said that it was the Israelis bombing a hospital. When we bombed Dresden, when the UK bombed Dresden and killed 25,000 people in one day, no one said boo because they were fighting Nazis. And today, Israel, with their precision, is still being bombarded by the liars in the UN. And it's scary and it's unnecessary. Why do I have to deal with these Meshuggahim, with these crazy people, with these liars, with these haters? I agree with all of them. It doesn't give you permission to stop being a good human being. It doesn't give you permission to become a putz like them. It doesn't give you permission to stop being a force of spirituality and holiness and goodness in the world, because that's the only thing that makes us different. We are an Am. What do they call in Israel? The soldiers sing Am HaNetzach. We are an eternal nation, but what makes us an eternal nation is because we have an eternal Torah. What makes us a moral army is because we're sitting there with precision. We don't like ever killing civilians, even though sometimes in war that happens. We are a unique people. Did you see the soldiers dancing? Am Yisrael lo mifached, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I don't know where they get the courage from. I really don't. Standing, you're about to go into Gaza. My nephew turned 20 on Tuesday. Tuesday? No. Yeah, on Tuesday. My nephew yesterday turned 20 in the army. He's alone. His family's in America. And we got a video of,
That was in that thing.
So they were singing, all the soldiers were singing happy birthday. And then first they were singing Yom Holadet, but then because he's American, all the Israeli soldiers, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. You guys are on an army base with sharpshooters, right? You have no idea, in 5 seconds you can be at war. But Am HaNetzach, Lo Mefached, the eternal nation, we don't live with fear. We don't live with these murderous eyes, like we're excited to kill. We're excited to live. And we're excited because we have a Torah that guides us. You should see the excitement of the Israeli soldiers and Israelis all across the country. Religious, not religious, putting on tefillin, putting on a yarmulke, putting on tzitzis. Like I said before, bringing kosher to the base, hugging. You know what? Maybe it's not a mitzvah. Maybe they're not there. But embracing each other as a Jewish family. Am HaNetzach, we are an eternal nation. Not just Am Yisrael Chai. The reason why Am Yisrael Chai is because we are Am HaNetzach. And if we don't forget that, and we don't give up on ourselves, and we don't make ourselves small so that we don't have to live up to higher standards, we continue to make this world a beacon of light. And in the dark, dark darkness, the anti-Semitic, anti-human, it's not even anti-Semitic, anti-human darkness, the light continues to shine. For those of you that don't see my social media, yesterday at around, I want to say 6:30, 6:45 p.m., Manny says somebody's in front of the house. These days, like I said today, I went running. You would think, by the way, if someone was in trouble in front of the house, like me, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to protect them? But, come with my shoe, like my father with a slipper, I came running, and it was a teacher from a local Christian school, Heritage Christian School. She knows where I live because she used to come to the shul when the shul was still in my house. And she was already heading back to her car. She thought she came to the house at the wrong hour. She came with a big card, probably the size of this book. Yeah. And in the front it said, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, with a big map of Israel. And then inside the card, this big mama card, every single students that know me from lectures that I've given them, and students that will get to know me. They never met me, but they'll meet me at the end of the year when they come for their lecture. Each one of them individually, probably 25 students, each wrote a note, Dear Rabbi Chaim, with messages about Israel and what they're praying for and what they're thinking about. There's goodness in the world. Don't let Linda Sarsour and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and all the other anti-Semites that walk around in America, don't let them convince you that the world is only evil. It's not. Yesterday morning outside of Longfellow, a mother rolled down the window, said, "Hey, Rabbi Chaim, how are you and your family doing?" And I said, "Well, all things considered." And she burst out crying, and her husband was in the driver's seat. And they both sat there for 15 minutes crying. Not like babies crying, sobbing, but tearing and tearing and tearing and telling us how much they can't read the news. Every time they see the news, they think of us. And they think of Manny, because Manny's friends with their kid, and they can't imagine what we're going through. They can't imagine how people could be so barbaric. So does everyone think that way? Not yet. But let's not forget there is goodness in the world, and we have to harness that by being that beacon of goodness, being that beacon of holiness. Shem sich nicht. Don't be embarrassed. Walk down Main Street with your yarmulke, not with a baseball cap. Baseball cap. Every chacham wears a baseball cap. Every baseball player wears a baseball cap. Wear a yarmulke. Am HaNetzach Lo Mefached. We're a nation that's eternal. We're not scared. What's the worst you can do? Kill me? I'll join a great litany of nations of people that died for being Jews. But no, not in Bozeman. In Bozeman, you have to put up with my 50 Christians that are going to protect me when you're trying to kill me. So I want to say an encouragement. Vernish sakratzt. Don't be bent out of shape. Don't hide. Don't duck. Be a prouder Jew, a more comfortable Jew, and don't give up on yourself. You can be the Noah of your family. You should be the Noah of your community. You can create the ark, immerse yourself in the ark, be saved by the ark, get into a state of spirituality, a Torah mitzvahs, and you'll be in a different realm, and you won't be consumed by shtusim v'avolim of idiocy that exists out there. L'chaim. Have an awesome night, and we'll see you back here soon.